Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're here tonight, you've probably come looking for something quiet, something calm, a gentle place to rest your mind as the day slowly fades away. And that's exactly what this is. Tonight, we're going to take a very long, very slow, very peaceful journey. Together, a journey through time, through science, through the deep and quiet story of our planet, the earth beneath your feet, the sky above your head, and the vast, slow future that stretches out before both of them. We're going to talk about the future of Earth, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that will make your heart race or your mind spin, but in the way that a very old and very wise astronomer might speak to you, quietly, sitting beside you in the dark, pointing gently at the stars and saying, "Look at that, isn't that something?" And we can take a moment to notice how your body is already beginning to feel a little heavier. Your shoulders perhaps are softening just slightly. Your breath is a little slower than it was a moment ago. Good, that's exactly where we want to be. So tonight, we'll learn 120 gentle, fascinating, scientific facts about the future of our planet, about the slow changes happening right now beneath the soil, about the quiet drift of the continents, about the way the oceans breathe and the forests grow and the stars above us age. So slowly, so patiently, each fact will be explained slowly, gently, and then we'll move on, softly, to the next one. There's no rush here. There never is, in the deep, slow time of the earth. So let yourself get comfortable now. Let your pillow hold the weight of your head. Let your blanket settle around you. And let's begin. Fact 1. The earth is always moving beneath you. Right now, as you lie there quietly, the ground beneath you is moving, not in a way you can feel, but it is moving, steadily and slowly, just as it has been for billions of years. The great plates of rock that make up Earth's surface, called tectonic plates, drift across the planet at roughly the same speed that your fingernails grow, about 2 to 5 centimeters every year. That's it, just a few centimeters, but over millions and millions of years. That small, steady movement has shaped everything we know, every mountain range, every ocean basin, every continent. The ground is patient. It does not rush, and yet, it has made the entire world. Fact 2. The continents were once one. About 300 million years ago, all of the land on Earth was joined together into a single enormous piece. Scientists call this supercontinent Pangaea. If you could have stood on it, you could have walked, in theory, from what is now Antarctica, all the way to what is now North America, without ever crossing an ocean. Slowly, gently, over millions of years, Pangaea broke apart, the pieces drifted, and the world became the map we know today. And it's still happening now. Very slowly, the continents are still drifting apart, or toward each other, just a little bit, every single day. Fact 3. The Atlantic Ocean is getting wider. Right now, tonight, the Atlantic Ocean is a little bit wider than it was when you woke up this morning. Not by much, by only a few millimeters. But the Atlantic grows wider every year, as the tectonic plates on either side of it slowly pull apart. The Americas drift slowly westward. Europe and Africa drift slowly eastward. The gap between them, the ocean, fills in from below, as new rock rises up from the ocean floor. The Atlantic is, in a sense, a very young ocean, and it is still growing, quietly, patiently, a little bit every day. Fact 4. The Pacific Ocean is slowly shrinking, and while the Atlantic grows, the Pacific is doing the opposite. The Pacific Ocean, the largest ocean on Earth, is slowly getting smaller. The plates around it are slowly moving toward each other. and the ocean floor is slowly sinking back down into the mantle of the Earth. Over millions of years, this process will continue. The Pacific will shrink and shrink, very slowly, while the Atlantic continues to grow. The oceans breathe, in a sense, expanding and contracting over deep time, as the planet rearranges itself, calmly and without hurry. Fact 5. A new supercontinent is forming. Scientists believe that, in about 250 million years from now, all of the continents will come back together again. They will form a new supercontinent. Some scientists call it Amasia, or Pangaea Proxima. The details are uncertain, the exact shape, the exact arrangement, but the general movement is clear. The continents are always moving. They came together once, they drifted apart, and slowly, over a span of time almost impossible to imagine, they will come together again. The Earth is patient, and it cycles through its great arrangements, like a slow geological heartbeat. Fact 6. The Moon is slowly moving away. Every year, the Moon drifts about 3.8 centimeters farther from Earth. It's not going away quickly. It will still be with us for billions of years. But it is very slowly moving away, carried outward by the subtle gravitational dance between the Earth and the Moon. Long ago, the Moon was much closer. It looked larger in the sky. The tides it created were much stronger. Over billions of years, it has gradually drifted to where it is now, and it will continue drifting, slowly and gently, into a slightly larger orbit, over the long, quiet future of our planet. Fact 7. Days are getting longer. Because the Moon is slowly drifting away, it has less gravitational pull on Earth's rotation, and that means Earth is spinning just slightly more slowly than it used to. The days are getting longer, but only by about 1.4 milliseconds every 100 years. When Earth was young, a day was only about 6 hours long. The planet spun much faster. Over billions of years, the friction of the tides has slowed it down, and it will continue to slow, very gradually, over the long future ahead. In the very far future, billions of years from now, a day on Earth might last as long as a month does today. Fact 8. The Earth's magnetic field gently wanders. Earth has a magnetic field, generated deep in its iron core. As molten metal slowly circulates, this magnetic field protects us. It shields the surface from harmful particles streaming out from the sun. But the magnetic field is not fixed. The magnetic North Pole wanders slowly across the Arctic, moving by several kilometers every year. Scientists track it carefully, and occasionally, though rarely over human timescales, the entire magnetic field flips. North becomes south, south becomes north. This has happened hundreds of times in Earth's history, and will happen again. Slowly, gently, the planet rewrites its own invisible compass. Fact 9. The inner core rotates slightly differently. Deep inside the Earth, at the very center, there is a solid ball of iron and nickel. The inner core, it is roughly the size of the Moon, and scientists have found that it rotates at a slightly different speed than the rest of the planet. It can spin a little faster, or a little slower, and it may even reverse its relative rotation over time. This deep, slow rotation inside the Earth is one of the reasons we have a magnetic field at all. The movements of the core, silent, invisible, deep below everything, quietly shape the conditions that make life on the surface possible. Fact 10. The Earth's surface is being recycled. The floor of the ocean is not old. In fact, the oldest ocean floor on Earth is only about 200 million years old, which, in geological terms, is quite recent. This is because the ocean floor is constantly being made and destroyed. New rock rises up from cracks in the ocean floor. Old rock sinks back down into the mantle at the edges of the plates. The surface of the planet is always being recycled. Slowly and steadily, the rock beneath the sea is born, spreads outward, and eventually returns to the deep interior of the Earth. On a timescale of hundreds of millions of years. Fact 11. The atmosphere was once very different. The air you breathe today is mostly nitrogen and oxygen. But that wasn't always the case. When Earth was young, about 4 billion years ago, the atmosphere was very different. It was thick with carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor, and other gases. There was almost no oxygen at all. The sky, if you could have seen it, might have appeared orange or reddish rather than blue. Over billions of years, tiny living things, ancient microorganisms, slowly changed the composition of the air. They consumed carbon dioxide and released oxygen. Quietly and gradually, life rebuilt the atmosphere, making it into the one we know today. Fact 12. Oxygen was once a poison. About 2.4 billion years ago, something remarkable happened. Tiny microorganisms called cyanobacteria began releasing oxygen into the atmosphere in large amounts. For the life that existed at the time, life that had evolved in a world without much oxygen, this was catastrophic. Oxygen was toxic to them. Scientists call this event the Great Oxidation Event. Much of the early life on Earth died out, but over time, new forms of life evolved that could not only tolerate oxygen, but depend on it, including, eventually, us. The oxygen we breathe tonight is a legacy of that ancient slow transformation. Fact 13. Carbon moves through the world in slow cycles. Carbon, the element at the heart of all living things, moves through the earth in great slow cycles. It drifts from the air, into the oceans, and the soil, and into living things. It moves from living things back into the soil when they die. It is carried into the deep ocean, and slowly incorporated into rock. It is released from volcanoes back into the air. This carbon cycle plays out over timescales of thousands and millions of years. Right now, tonight, carbon atoms in your breath are joining the atmosphere and beginning their own slow journey through the world. Through air, through water, rough rock, and back again. Fact 14. Volcanoes are a source of new atmosphere. Even today, volcanoes are adding new gases to the atmosphere. When a volcano erupts, it releases water vapor, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and other gases that have been trapped in the rock deep below. Over billions of years, this volcanic outgassing has contributed to the composition of our atmosphere. The water in the oceans partly came from ancient volcanic activity as well. The same slow, quiet forces that build mountains and reshape continents have also patiently contributed to the air that surrounds us every moment. The atmosphere is not just above us, it is a living part of the Earth itself. Fact 15. The sky is blue because of the way light scatters. When sunlight enters our atmosphere, it collides with the tiny molecules of gas in the air. Different colors of light scatter in different ways. Blue light scatters more widely than red or yellow light, spreading in all directions across the sky. That's why, when you look up at the sky during the day, it appears blue. It's not that the sky itself is blue. It's that blue light is being scattered toward your eyes from every direction. The same effect makes sunsets appear orange and red. When the sun is low on the horizon, its light must travel through more atmosphere, and most of the blue light has already scattered away, leaving only the longer wavelengths. We can take a quiet moment to think about this. The blue sky above you, the slow dance of light through the air. Fact 16. The atmosphere has layers. The atmosphere around Earth is not uniform. It's made of several distinct layers, each with its own temperature and properties. The layer we live in, the troposphere, extends from the surface up to about 12 kilometers. Above that is the stratosphere, where the ozone layer lives, absorbing ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Higher still are the mesosphere, the thermosphere, and the exosphere, regions so thin and so far from the surface that they barely resemble the air we breathe at all. The highest layers gradually fade into the emptiness of space. There is no sharp line where the atmosphere ends and space begins. Just a slow, gentle thinning. Fact 17. The ozone layer is recovering. In the latter part of the 20th century, scientists discovered that human-made chemicals were thinning the ozone layer, the part of the stratosphere that protects Earth's surface from harmful ultraviolet radiation. When nations of the world came together and agreed to stop using those chemicals, the ozone layer began to recover. Slowly, quietly, scientists now estimate that the ozone layer may fully recover by the middle of this century. It is a gentle reminder that the atmosphere can heal, given time and care. The sky has a kind of resilience, a patience. It moves toward balance when it is given the chance. Fact 18. Clouds are made of tiny droplets. A cloud is not made of cotton or mist in the way we might imagine. It's made of tiny water droplets, or ice crystals, suspended in the air. Each droplet is so small that it floats on the slightest air current. A single cumulus cloud, the kind that looks fluffy and soft, might contain 500,000 kilograms of water, all suspended invisibly, in the form of these tiny droplets, and yet the cloud looks weightless, light, soft, because each droplet is so small and so spread out that together they create a gentle, drifting mist in the sky. Clouds are quiet things, always moving, always changing shape. Fact 19. Lightning creates nitrogen for the soil. Every time lightning strikes, it does something that most of us never think about. The intense heat and energy of a lightning bolt causes nitrogen gas in the air to combine with oxygen, forming compounds that eventually fall to the ground in rain. These compounds, called nitrates, are absorbed into the soil and used by plants as nutrients. Lightning is, in a quiet way, a kind of fertilizer. It has been doing this for billions of years, long before humans ever thought to add nitrogen to their farms. The storms that rumble in the night are doing patient, useful work in the slow chemistry of the world. Fact 20. Rain is a part of an ancient cycle. The water that falls as rain tonight has been cycling through the world for billions of years. Water evaporates from the ocean, rises into the atmosphere, forms clouds, and eventually falls back to the surface as rain or snow. It flows into rivers and streams, drains back into the ocean, and evaporates again. This is the water cycle, and it is ancient. The water molecules in a raindrop might have once been part of a dinosaur, or a fern from the Jurassic period, or a glacier that covered the land millions of years ago. Water is never created or destroyed. It simply keeps moving through the world, quietly and endlessly, gently moving forward now, into the quiet story of living things. Fact 21. Life has existed for almost 4 billion years. The oldest fossils of living things on Earth are about 3.7 billion years old. These are the remains of simple microorganisms, tiny single-celled life forms, preserved in ancient rock. Life began very early in Earth's history, in the warm, chemistry-rich waters of the early ocean. Since then, It has never stopped. Through mass extinctions, and ice ages, and asteroid impacts, life has always found a way to continue. It has adapted. It has diversified. It has filled every corner of the planet. The deep ocean, the frozen ice, the scorching desert. Life is persistent, gentle, and very, very old. Fact 22. Most species that have ever lived are extinct. Scientists estimate that more than 99% of all species that have ever existed on Earth are now extinct. This is not a tragedy. It is simply the nature of life over deep time. Species evolve, thrive, change, and eventually disappear, replaced by new species adapted to new conditions. The Earth has gone through 5 major mass extinctions, each wiping out a large proportion of species. But after each extinction, life recovered. New species emerged. The world became full again. Life on Earth has a remarkable resilience, a capacity to rebuild, and repopulate, and diversify, given enough time. Fact 23. Forests are slow and patient things. A forest is not a collection of individual trees. It is a single, vast, interconnected living system. Trees communicate through their roots, sharing nutrients and chemical signals. Through networks of fungi in the soil, a large tree can share sugar with a smaller tree nearby that is struggling in the shade. Old trees, sometimes called mother trees by scientists, play a central role in supporting the younger trees around them. A forest grows slowly, over decades and centuries. A mature old-growth forest has taken hundreds of years to reach its current state. It is quiet and deep and full of slow, patient life. Fact 24. Trees breathe in the opposite direction from us. During the day, a tree absorbs carbon dioxide through tiny pores in its leaves. It uses that carbon dioxide, along with sunlight and water, to build sugar, the fuel that powers its growth. And as a byproduct, it releases oxygen into the air. The oxygen we breathe tonight came partly from the quiet work of trees and other plants. And the carbon dioxide that trees absorb becomes part of the wood, locked away in the trunk, the branches, the roots. A single large tree might hold hundreds of kilograms of carbon in its body, carbon that was once floating in the air and has been quietly captured and stored. Fact 25. The ocean is Earth's largest carbon absorber. The ocean absorbs a very large amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, roughly a quarter of all the carbon dioxide released by human activities each year. It does this partly through simple chemistry. Carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, and partly through biology. Tiny ocean plants called phytoplankton absorb carbon dioxide through photosynthesis. When phytoplankton die, they drift slowly down to the ocean floor, carrying their carbon with them. Over millions of years, this carbon is buried in the sediment and becomes part of the rock. The ocean is a vast, slow, quiet system for moving carbon out of the air and into the deep earth. We can take a moment to notice the slow, patient movement of the world, always breathing, always cycling. Fact 26. There are more trees than stars in the Milky Way. Earth is home to roughly 3 trillion trees. That number, 3 trillion, is almost impossible to picture. But for comparison, there are estimated to be somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. In the Milky Way galaxy, that means there are more trees on Earth than there are stars in our galaxy. Of course, trees are not evenly spread. They are concentrated in forests, in the tropical rainforest regions, in the boreal forests of the far north. But still, 3 trillion is a number that speaks to the quiet abundance of life. On this planet, Fact 27. Most of Earth's species live in the soil. When we think about life on Earth, we tend to think about animals, and birds, and fish. But the vast majority of Earth's biodiversity, its variety of living things, lives in the soil. A single teaspoon of healthy soil can contain billions of bacteria, millions of fungi, and thousands of tiny invertebrates. The soil is alive, densely and invisibly alive. It is a world within a world, and it is the foundation upon which all the larger life we see, the trees, the flowers, the fields of grass, depends. The life beneath the surface is quiet and unseen, but it holds everything together. Fact 28. Coral reefs are among the oldest living structures. Coral reefs are built, very slowly, by tiny animals called coral polyps. Each polyp is small, often no bigger than a pencil eraser. But together, over thousands of years, they build structures of extraordinary size and complexity. The Great Barrier Reef in Australia is so large it can be seen from space. It has been building for roughly 20,000 years. The reef is not just rock. It is a living structure, home to thousands of species of fish and invertebrates. Each day, the coral adds a tiny amount to the reef's structure. The reef grows. Time passes, slowly, steadily, and without hurry. Fact 29. Whales are among the longest-lived animals. The bowhead whale is one of the longest-lived animals on Earth. Scientists have found bowhead whales with harpoon tips in their bodies that are over 200 years old, meaning the whale survived a hunting attempt in the early 19th century and lived on for another 2 centuries. Some individual bowhead whales may live for more than 210 years. They're quiet, slow-moving animals that spend their lives in the cold Arctic waters, feeding on tiny crustaceans, singing their low, gentle songs through the water. There is something deeply peaceful about an animal. The T has been swimming through the same cold ocean for over 2 centuries. Fact 30. Mushrooms connect the forest. Beneath every forest floor, there is a vast underground network of fungal threads called mycelium. These threads connect the roots of trees to each other, and through them, trees can share water, nutrients, and even chemical warning signals. If one tree is attacked by insects, it can send chemical signals through the fungal network to warn neighboring trees, which then produce defensive chemicals in their own leaves. This network is sometimes called the Wood Wide Web. It is invisible, patient, and extraordinarily complex. The forest communicates, yes, through its roots, in a slow chemical language that has no words. But now, as we continue, gently, let's think about the relationship between our planet and its star. Fact 31. The Sun is a middle-aged star. Our Sun is about 4.6 billion years old. In the life of a star, that makes it roughly middle-aged. Stars like our Sun have a lifespan of about 10 billion years. So the Sun still has about 5 billion years left to burn. It will spend most of that time much as it is today, a steady, reliable source of warmth and light. The Sun is not the largest star, nor the brightest, but it is exactly the kind of star, stable, long-lived, neither too hot nor too cool, that allows a planet like Earth to maintain the conditions for life over billions of years. Fact 32. The Sun is getting slowly brighter. Over long timescales, the Sun is very gradually getting brighter. This happens because as hydrogen in the Sun's core is converted to helium through nuclear fusion, the core slowly contracts and the fusion process becomes slightly more intense. Scientists estimate that the Sun is about 30% brighter today than it was when the Earth first formed. And it will continue to brighten very slowly over the next billion years or so. This slow brightening will eventually affect Earth's climate over very long timescales. But for now, the change is so gradual that it plays out over hundreds of millions of years. Fact 33. Sunlight takes 8 minutes to reach Earth. The light from the sun that reaches your window every morning left the surface of the sun about 8 minutes and 20 seconds ago. Light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second, the fastest anything can travel, and it still takes more than 8 minutes to cross the roughly 150 million kilometers between the sun and the Earth. If the sun were to suddenly go dark, which it won't, we wouldn't know for 8 minutes. We would still be seeing its light. There is something quietly beautiful about that. The light around us is always a little by. Tea from the past. Fact 34. The Earth's distance from the sun varies. Earth's orbit around the sun is not a perfect circle. It's a slightly oval shape, called an ellipse. This means that Earth is not always the same distance from the sun. It is closest to the sun in early January, a time called perihelion, and farthest from the sun in early July, a time called aphelion. The difference is about 5 million kilometers. Interestingly, Earth is closest to the sun during the northern hemisphere's winter and farthest from the sun during the northern hemisphere's summer. The seasons are not caused by distance from the sun. They are caused by the tilt of Earth's axis. Fact 35. Earth's tilt creates the seasons. Earth spins on an axis that is tilted at about 23.5 degrees. This tilt is why we have seasons. When the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, it receives more direct sunlight, longer days, and warmer temperatures. That's summer. 6 months later, the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. Shorter days, less direct sunlight, cooler temperatures. That's winter. The tilt itself doesn't change much over human timescales, but over thousands of years, it does wobble slightly. And those very slow wobbles in the tilt, along with other slow changes in Earth's orbit, are believed to have played a role in triggering the ice ages. Slowly, gently, we move on. Fact 36. Ice ages come and go very slowly. The Earth has gone through many ice ages in its long history. During an ice age, large sheets of ice, glaciers, spread from the poles toward the equator, covering vast portions of land. The last major ice age reached its peak about 20,000 years ago, when ice sheets covered much of North America and Europe. Then, slowly, the ice retreated. The glaciers melted. The land was freed. Sea levels rose. Rivers formed. And the landscape that humans eventually built their civilizations on was revealed. Ice ages are slow events. They develop over thousands of years and recede over thousands mo. Fact 37. Glaciers move like slow rivers. A glacier is not a motionless block of ice. It moves, very slowly, very quietly, but it moves flowing downhill under its own weight, at a pace of perhaps a few meters per day, or a few meters per year, depending on the glacier. As it moves, it carries rock and sediment with it, carving out valleys, polishing the bedrock below, depositing material in long ridges called moraines when it finally melts. Some of the most beautiful landscapes on Earth, the fjords of Norway, the valleys of the Alps, the lakes of Scotland, were carved by the slow, patient movement of ancient glaciers long since melted. Fact 38. The poles are covered in ancient ice. The ice sheets of Antarctica and Greenland contain ice that has been accumulating for hundreds of thousands of years. Deep within that ice are tiny bubbles of ancient air, air from hundreds of thousands of years ago, trapped when the snow fell and was slowly compressed into ice. Scientists drill down through the ice and extract these bubbles, and by analyzing the ancient air inside, they can learn what Earth's atmosphere was like hundreds of thousands of years ago. The ice is a library, written in the language of ancient air. It holds a record of the climate going back 800 though. Using years. Fact 39. The sun will eventually become a red giant. In about 5 billion years, when the sun has used up most of the hydrogen in its core, it will begin to change. The core will contract, and the outer layers will expand, dramatically, slowly, over hundreds of millions of years. The sun will grow larger and larger, becoming what is called a red giant star. It will eventually expand to roughly 100 times its current size, engulfing the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and possibly Earth. The sun will then shed its outer layers and leave behind a small, dense core, a white dwarf, glowing quietly in space. This is the eventual, peaceful F8 of our star. Fact 40. Earth may escape the red giant. There is some chance that Earth will not be swallowed by the expanding sun. As the sun loses mass during its red giant phase, its gravitational pull will weaken slightly. This could cause Earth's orbit to slowly expand outward, moving Earth farther from the sun, just enough to escape the expanding outer layers. Whether Earth survives or not depends on the precise details of how the sun loses mass and how Earth's orbit responds. Scientists are not certain of the outcome. But either way, the Earth as we know it, with its oceans and atmosphere, will have changed beyond recognition long before the sun becomes a red giant. And now, gently moving forward, let's think about the water that covers most of our planet. Fact 41. The oceans cover most of Earth. About 71% of Earth's surface is covered by ocean. When you look at a globe or at a photograph of Earth from space, the dominant color is blue, the blue of water. The average depth of the ocean is about 3,700 meters. The deepest point, the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, is nearly 11,000 meters below the surface. If you place the highest mountain, Mount Everest, in the Challenger Deep, its peak would still be more than a kilometer below the ocean's surface. The ocean is vast and deep and mostly unexplored. More of the ocean floor has been mapped in detail than many parts of the land. Fact 42. The ocean has its own weather system. The ocean doesn't just sit still. It has currents, great rivers of water that flow through the ocean, driven by differences in temperature and salinity. These currents move enormous amounts of heat from the tropics toward the poles, helping to regulate the climate of the entire planet. The Gulf Stream, for example, carries warm water from the Caribbean up along the east coast of North America and across to Europe, keeping northern Europe warmer than it would otherwise be. Ocean currents are slow. They move at walking pace or slower, but they carry enormous volumes of water and heat, quietly balancing the temperature of the world. Fact 43. The ocean absorbs heat. Water has a remarkable ability to absorb and store heat. The ocean absorbs the vast majority, more than 90%, of the excess heat that has been added to the Earth's climate system in recent decades. This means the ocean is warming, and as it warms, it expands slightly because warm water takes up more space than cold water. This thermal expansion, combined with the melting of glaciers and ice sheets, is one of the main reasons sea levels are rising. The ocean is changing, slowly, absorbing the consequences of changes in the atmosphere and gradually adjusting the conditions at the surface of the planet. Fact 44. The deep ocean is very cold. Below the warm surface layer of the ocean, the water is cold, very cold. At depths below about 200 meters, the ocean temperature drops significantly, often to just a few degrees above freezing. The deep ocean, below 1,000 meters, is consistently cold and dark, a world of near-freezing temperatures, crushing pressure, and total absence of sunlight. And yet life has found a way to thrive there. 2. Strange and beautiful creatures. Anglerfish with their bioluminescent lures, giant squid with eyes the size of dinner plates, deep-sea corals that grow in complete darkness, live quietly in the cold, dark world at bottom of the sea. Fact 45. Sea level has changed many times. Sea level is not fixed. It has changed many times throughout Earth's history, rising and falling as glaciers grew and melted. During the last ice age, sea level was roughly 120 meters lower than it is today. Land that is now underwater, the shallow continental shelves, was exposed as dry land. Humans walked across land bridges that are now sea floor. The coasts were in completely different places, and as the ice melted, slowly, over thousands of years, the sea rose. It reclaimed the land. Coastlines shifted. Some regions flooded. The relationship between land and sea let us take a quiet moment to notice the deep, slow rhythms of the ocean, always moving, always changing. Fact 46. The ocean floor is full of mountains. Beneath the surface of the ocean, there are mountain ranges longer than any on land. The mid-ocean ridge system, a chain of underwater mountains formed where tectonic plates pull apart and new rock rises from below, stretches for about 65,000 kilometers around the globe. It is the longest mountain range on Earth. Most of it has never been seen by human eyes. There are also individual underwater mountains, called seamounts, that rise steeply from the ocean floor. Many seamounts are home to rich and diverse communities of life, perched on their summits in the current-swept water above the deep. Fact 47. The ocean is slightly salty. The ocean contains about 35 grams of dissolved salts per liter of water. This saltiness comes from a very slow, very long process. Rainwater is slightly acidic, and as it flows over rocks on land, it slowly dissolves minerals, including salts. These dissolved minerals are carried by rivers to the ocean. Over billions of years, the ocean has accumulated these salts, while pure water evaporates back into the atmosphere. The ocean has probably been roughly this salty for a very long time. The salt is not going anywhere. It circulates within the ocean system, carried by currents and cycling through the bodies of ocean creatures. Fact 48. Phytoplankton produce half our oxygen. Tiny, microscopic plants drifting in the sunlit surface of the ocean, called phytoplankton, are responsible for producing roughly half of all the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Every second breath you take was made possible, in part, by these invisible ocean plants. They are so small that millions of them fit in a single liter of seawater. But together, they perform a vast and essential service. They absorb carbon dioxide and sunlight and produce oxygen, day after day, in the sunlit surface waters of every ocean on Earth. The ocean is not just a body of water, it is a vast, living, thing organism. Fact 49. The tides are powered by the moon. Every day, in most places on Earth, the ocean rises and falls twice. These are the tides, and they are caused primarily by the gravitational pull of the moon. As the moon orbits the Earth, its gravity gently pulls on the ocean, creating a bulge of water on the side of Earth facing the moon. There's also a corresponding bulge on the opposite side. As the Earth rotates through these bulges, coastal areas experience high tides and low tides. The sun also contributes to the tides, and when the sun and moon are aligned, the tides are larger, spring tides. When they are at right angles, the tides are smaller, neap tides. Fact 50. The ocean slows down climate changes. Because water stores heat so well, the ocean acts as a buffer for the climate. It absorbs heat when the atmosphere warms, and releases heat when the atmosphere cools. This buffering effect means that climate changes happen more slowly than they otherwise would. The ocean gives the rest of the climate system time to adjust. But it also means that even if the atmosphere stopped changing overnight, the ocean would continue adjusting for decades or centuries. The slow, deep ocean is like a very large, very patient flywheel, absorbing energy, storing it, and releasing it on its own quiet timescale. Now, as we drift along quietly, let's think about time itself in the way that geologists think about it. Fact 51. Geologic time is almost impossible to imagine. The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. To try to understand that number, consider this. If the entire history of Earth were compressed into a single 24-hour day, modern humans would appear only in the last 2 seconds before midnight. All of recorded human history, every civilization, every war, every invention, would occupy less than the blink of an eye at the very end of the day. The trees, the insects, the fish, they have been here for longer than we can really comprehend. The Earth is very, very old, and we are very, very new. Fact 52. Rocks tell time. Geologists can read time in rocks. Different types of rock form under different conditions and at different rates, leaving layers, called strata, that record the passage of time like pages in a very slow book. Younger layers are typically deposited on top of older layers, and within those layers, fossils record which creatures were alive at which time. By measuring the decay of radioactive elements within the rock, scientists can determine very precisely how old the rock is, sometimes to within a fraction of a percent. The rock record is not complete. Much has been eroded or subducted, but what remains tells an extraordinary story. Fact 53. The oldest rock on Earth. The oldest rocks found on Earth's surface are about 4 billion years old. Ancient gneisses from northern Canada, called the Acasta gneiss. They are among the oldest solid material we can touch and study, but there are tiny mineral crystals, zircons, found in Australia that are even older, about 4.4 billion years old. These tiny crystals survived the destruction of the rocks they originally formed in, and were eventually incorporated into younger rocks. They are the oldest known solid material to have formed on Earth's surface, and they give us a glimpse of the very earliest chapter of Earth's history. Fact 54. Fossils are very rare. We tend to think of fossils as fairly common. They are displayed in museums and found in riverbeds. But in truth, fossilization is an extraordinarily rare event. When a creature dies, it almost always simply decomposes. Fossilization requires a very specific set of conditions. The organism must be buried quickly, in sediment, before it decomposes. The sediment must eventually harden into rock, and the rock must survive for millions of years without being destroyed. The vast majority of life that has ever existed left no trace at all. The fossils we have are a tiny, precious fragment of the full story of life, a few chapters fr. On a very long book. Fact 55. The Earth has a heartbeat. Scientists have detected what they call Earth's hum, a continuous, very low-frequency vibration of the Earth's surface. It is too low to hear, well below the range of human hearing, but it can be detected by sensitive seismometers. The hum is believed to be generated by the interaction of ocean waves with the ocean floor, which sends vibrations through the solid Earth. It is constant, quiet, and pervasive. Everywhere on Earth, at all times, the ground is very gently vibrating, not from earthquakes or human activity, but from the quiet, constant action of the ocean on the sea floor. The Earth is always hum. Ing, softly, to itself. Softly, we continue taking our time. There is nowhere we need to be. Fact 56. The Earth's crust is thin compared to the planet. If you compare Earth to an apple, the crust, the outermost layer of solid rock, is thinner than the apple's skin. Beneath the continents, the crust is typically 30 to 50 kilometers thick. Beneath the ocean, it's even thinner, only about 5 to 10 kilometers. Below the crust is the mantle, a thick layer of hot, semi-solid rock that makes up most of Earth's volume. And at the center is the core, an outer liquid layer and an inner solid ball. The Earth is like a very large, very slowly moving onion, with layer upon layer of different materials, each behaving in its own slow way. Fact 57. The mantle flows like very slow honey. The mantle, the thick layer of rock between the crust and the core, is solid in the short term, but it flows over very long timescales. Given enough time, millions of years, the mantle rock flows and convects like a very, very slow and thick fluid. This slow convection drives the movement of the tectonic plates above. Hot rock rises from deep in the mantle, spreads out beneath the crust, and eventually cools and sinks back down. This vast, slow circulation, happening invisibly beneath our feet, is what powers earthquakes, volcanoes, and the movement of continents. The mantle is patient, but it is alwa. Why is moving? Fact 58. Mountains are being built and worn away. Mountains are not permanent features of the landscape. They are built up, slowly, over millions of years, as tectonic plates collide and rock is pushed upward. The Himalayas, for example, are still being built today, as the Indian subcontinent slowly collides with Asia. And at the same time, mountains are being worn away, slowly, constantly by rain, wind, ice, and rivers. Rocks are broken down into smaller and smaller pieces and carried downhill, eventually reaching the ocean. Over tens of millions of years, even the tallest mountains are reduced to gentle hills, and eventually to plains. Mountain building and mountain erosion are two sides of the same ver. Why slow process? Fact 59. Diamonds come from very deep in the earth. Natural diamonds form deep in the earth, about 150 to 200 kilometers below the surface, under conditions of extreme heat and pressure. Carbon atoms, compressed under these extraordinary conditions, arrange themselves into a crystal structure that is the hardest natural substance on Earth. Then, in rare geological events, violent eruptions carry these diamonds rapidly upward through the crust, in columns of volcanic rock called kimberlite pipes. Without this rapid journey to the surface, the diamonds would simply revert to graphite, the same material in a pencil, as the pressure decreased. Diamonds are visitors from the deep interior of the Earth, brought to the surface by chance. Fact 60. Earthquakes release slow accumulations of stress. Earthquakes happen when rocks that have been gradually bent and stressed by tectonic plate movement finally slip past each other. The stress builds slowly, over decades or centuries or longer, and then releases all at once. The energy released in that sudden slip travels outward through the rock as seismic waves, shaking the ground. After the main earthquake, smaller aftershocks may continue for weeks or months as the surrounding rock slowly adjusts. The earthquake is, in a sense, a sudden release of the slow, patient accumulation of tension in the crust, the Earth F, ending a new equilibrium. And now, let's drift gently into the future of our own species, and what it might mean for the planet. Fact 61. Humans are a very recent arrival. Our species, Homo sapiens, has existed for roughly 300,000 years. That sounds like a long time, but in the context of Earth's 4.5 billion-year history, it is an extraordinarily brief moment. We have been here for less than 1/10,000th of Earth's history. The dinosaurs, just as a comparison, existed for about 160 million years. If Earth's history were a year long, humans would have arrived in the last hour of the last day of December. We are newcomers. The planet is ancient, and we are just beginning to understand our place with it. Fact 62. Humans have changed the atmosphere. In the roughly 250 years since the Industrial Revolution, human activities have significantly changed the composition of Earth's atmosphere. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has risen from about 280 parts per million to over 400 parts per million, higher than it has been in at least 3 million years. This change is happening quickly in geological terms, though it seems slow in human terms. The atmosphere is sensitive to these changes, and the climate system is slowly adjusting in response. The changes we are making now will play out over centuries and millennia. Fact 63. The climate system responds slowly. Even if every human activity that affects the climate were to stop today, which of course it won't, the climate would continue changing for decades to centuries afterward. This is because the climate system is very large and has a lot of thermal inertia. It takes a long time to change. The ocean, in particular, is very slow to respond. The warming that has already been set in motion by past emissions will continue playing out over the coming decades. The climate system is like a very large ship. It doesn't turn quickly, but it does turn slowly and surely, give enough time. Fact 64. Forests can regrow. When forests are cleared, the land does not remain barren forever. Given time, forests can regrow. The process begins with fast-growing pioneer species, grasses, shrubs, sun-loving trees, that colonize the cleared land. Over decades, these are gradually replaced by slower-growing species that prefer shade. Over a century or more, a mature forest can begin to reestablish itself. The soil needs to recover, the seed bank needs to replenish, and the right combination of species needs to find its way back. Forest regrowth is a slow process, but it happens quietly and persistently whenever the land is left alone. Fact 65. Wetlands are nature's water filters. Wetlands, marshes, swamps, bogs, and fens are among the most productive and ecologically important ecosystems on Earth. They filter water, removing pollutants and excess nutrients before they reach rivers and lakes. They slow the flow of floodwater, reducing the risk of downstream flooding. They store carbon in the form of peat and other organic matter, and they provide habitat for an extraordinary diversity of plants and animals. Wetlands have been drained and developed throughout human history, but their importance is increasingly recognized. They are quiet, wet, still places, and they do an enormous amount of gentle, essential work. We can take a quiet moment to breathe and think about the quiet work that the natural world does all around us, all the time. Fact 66. Human bones last a long time. After death, Human bones can persist in the right conditions for tens of thousands of years. In very dry or very cold environments, they can last even longer. Paleontologists have found fossilized bones of our ancestors that are hundreds of thousands of years old. Given the right conditions, burial in the right kind of sediment, in the right kind of environment, some human remains might persist and fossilize over millions of years. Future geologists, if any exist, might find traces of our civilization in the rock record. Not just bones, but the sediment layers enriched with certain chemicals and materials that mark our presence. Fact 67. The Anthropocene is a new chapter in Earth's history. Geologists have proposed that we are now living in a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene, defined by the significant and lasting impact of human activities on Earth's geology and ecosystems. The beginning of the Anthropocene is debated, but many scientists place it around the mid-20th century, when nuclear testing, industrialization, and large-scale agriculture began leaving distinctive and permanent marks in the geological record. Sediment layers from the mid-20th century onward contain novel materials, plastic microparticles, concrete, certain isotopes, that will remain detectable in the rock for millions of years. It is, in a quiet way, a new chapter of Earth's long book. Fact 68. Cities are a new kind of geological feature. The materials used to build human cities, concrete, steel, brick, glass, plastic, are accumulating on the Earth's surface in ways that have no precedent in the planet's natural history. The total mass of human-made structures and objects on Earth has been estimated to now exceed the total mass of all living things. All the trees, all the animals, all the microorganisms, not in terms of value, of course, but in terms of sheer physical mass. This is a remarkable and historically unprecedented moment in the story of the planet. The physical impact of our species on the surface of the Earth is, at this point, very large. Fact 69. Rewilding can restore ecosystems. When humans stop using land intensively, when farms are abandoned, or when deliberate conservation efforts are made, nature often comes back, sometimes faster than expected. This process of allowing ecosystems to recover, called rewilding, has shown remarkable results in many parts of the world. Wolves reintroduced to Yellowstone National Park changed the behavior of elk, which allowed riverbank vegetation to recover, which stabilized riverbeds, which changed the course of rivers. A single change in an ecosystem can ripple outward in surprising ways. Nature, given the chance, has a deep capacity to heal and restore itself. It just needs time. Fact 70. The future of humans is still unwritten. We do not know what the future of our species will look like over the long term. Will we find ways to live in greater harmony with the natural systems of the planet? Will we develop new technologies that allow us to reduce our impact on the atmosphere and the ocean? The future is genuinely open. The decisions made by people alive today, and the generations that follow, will shape the trajectory of life on Earth for thousands and perhaps millions of years. The future is not determined. It is being written, slowly, by the accumulated choices of billions of human beings, living there. Now, let us drift a little further into the quiet darkness above. Fact 71. Stars are being born right now. Even as you rest here tonight, stars are being born somewhere in the universe. In the dense clouds of gas and dust that drift through galaxies, gravity is very slowly pulling material together. Over millions of years, a clump of gas collapses under its own weight, becoming denser and hotter, until eventually, in the center, nuclear fusion ignites, and a new star begins to shine. The Orion Nebula, visible to the naked eye on a clear night, is one such region of star formation. The stars we see in the sky tonight are not the last stars. The universe is still making more, quietly, in the dark between galaxies. Fact 72. The night sky is a window into the past. When you look at the stars, you are not seeing them as they are now. You are seeing light that left them years, decades, centuries, or even millions of years ago. The nearest star to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, is about 4 light-years away, meaning the light we see from it left 4 years ago. The Andromeda Galaxy, visible as a faint smudge in the night sky, is about 2.5 million light-years away. The light we see from it left before modern humans existed. The night sky is a kind of time machine. Every point of light is a window into the past. Fact 73. The universe is expanding. The universe is getting larger, not in the sense that there is empty space beyond it into which it is expanding, but in the sense that the space between galaxies is itself stretching. Galaxies are moving away from each other, carried apart by the expansion of space itself. The farther a galaxy is from us, the faster it appears to be moving away. This expansion was discovered in the early 20th century, and scientists have since found that it is accelerating. The expansion is speeding up, driven by a mysterious force called dark energy. The universe is vast, and it is growing vaster, slowly and steadily, in all directions. Fact 74. Most of the universe is invisible to us. The stars, galaxies, and other objects we can see make up only about 5% of the total content of the universe. The rest, about 27% dark matter and about 68% dark energy, is invisible, and we don't fully understand what it is. Dark matter doesn't emit or absorb light, but its gravitational effects are detectable. Dark energy is even more mysterious. It seems to be responsible for the accelerating expansion of the universe. The universe is, in a quiet and humbling way, mostly made of things we cannot see and do not yet understand. It holds its mysteries patiently. Fact 75. The Milky Way and Andromeda will merge. In about 4.5 billion years, the Milky Way galaxy, our home, will collide and merge with the Andromeda Galaxy. This sounds dramatic, but in practice, it will be an extraordinarily slow process, playing out over hundreds of millions of years. Galaxies are mostly empty space, so the stars within them are unlikely to collide directly. Instead, the two galaxies will pass through each other, their gravitational forces distorting their shapes, pulling long streams of stars out into space. Eventually, they will merge into a single, larger galaxy. The process will be slow, vast, and quiet, a slow dance of two galaxies coming together over deep time. Gently, we take a breath, and we let the vastness of the universe settle around us like a soft blanket. Fact 76. Other stars have planets too. We now know that planets are not unique to our solar system. Thousands of exoplanets, planets orbiting other stars, have been discovered. Some are huge gas giants, much larger than Jupiter. Some are small and rocky, like Earth. Some orbit in the habitable zone of their star, the region where liquid water might exist on the surface. The universe, it seems, is full of planets. They are a natural byproduct of the way stars form. Wherever there is a star, there is likely a system of planets forming around it, slowly coalescing from the leftover gas and dust of the star's be. Earth. Fact 77. The solar system formed from a cloud of gas. Our solar system, the sun, the planets, the moons, the asteroids and comets, all formed from a single, slowly rotating cloud of gas and dust about 4.5 billion years ago. Gravity caused the cloud to collapse inward. Most of the material fell to the center and formed the sun. The rest formed a flat disk around it. And within that disk, materials slowly clumped together, first into small rocky bodies, then into larger and larger objects, and eventually into the planets we know today. The entire process took tens of millions of years, slow, quiet, vast, and beautiful. Fact 78. Comets carry ancient material. Comets are among the most ancient objects in the solar system. They formed in the cold outer regions of the early solar system, billions of years ago, and have been preserved in the deep freeze of space ever since. When a comet approaches the inner solar system, the sun's heat warms its icy surface, releasing gas and dust that form the comet's glowing tail. The material in a comet's nucleus, its frozen core, is largely unchanged from the time of the solar system's formation. Studying comets is, in a sense, like reading the very first page of the solar system's history. Fact 79. Meteorites fall to Earth every day. Every day, thousands of tiny pieces of rock and dust from space, called meteoroids, enter Earth's atmosphere. Most are so small that they burn up completely before reaching the ground, creating the streaks of light we call meteors, or shooting stars. But a small number of larger pieces survive the fiery journey through the atmosphere and land on the surface. These are called meteorites. Most go unnoticed, landing in the ocean or in remote areas. But occasionally, a meteorite is found and studied, revealing information about the early solar system and the materials from which planets were built. Fact 80. The Earth's orbit is very stable. Earth's orbit around the Sun is, on human timescales, very stable and reliable. The planet returns to the same position in its orbit, year after year, with extraordinary regularity. The slight variations in Earth's orbit that do occur, tiny wobbles and shifts in the shape of the orbit, in the tilt of the axis, in the direction the axis points, play out over thousands to hundreds of thousands of years. These slow orbital variations, called Milankovitch cycles, influence the distribution of sunlight reaching Earth's surface, and are believed to be the pacemaker of the ice ages. The slow, gentle rocking of Earth's orbit shapes the climate or geological timescales. Now, gently, as we move into the later hours, let us think about some of the smaller, quieter, more intimate processes of the natural world. Fact 81. Rivers slowly carve the land. A river, over long enough timescales, can carve an extraordinary landscape. The Colorado River, flowing through the Colorado Plateau, has cut the Grand Canyon, over a mile deep and up to 18 miles wide, over a period of about 5 to 6 million years. Water alone did not do this. It was water carrying sand and gravel and rock, grinding away at the canyon floor and walls, grain by grain, drop by drop. The river never hurried. It simply flowed, as rivers do, and over millions of years, it carved one of the most spectacular landscapes on Earth. Patience, it turns out, can move mountains. Fact 82. Caves form in the dark. Caves form through a quiet, slow chemical process. Water, slightly acidified by carbon dioxide absorbed from the air and soil, slowly dissolves limestone rock along cracks and joints. Over thousands and millions of years, the cracks widen into passages, and passages expand into chambers, the stalactites and stalagmites that decorate many caves. Those beautiful stone columns hanging from the ceiling or rising from the floor form even more slowly, one thin layer of mineral deposited at a time, over thousands of years. A stalactite a meter long might be 100,000 years old. Caves are chambers of geological time, quietly built in. The dark. Fact 83. Soil takes a very long time to form. Healthy soil, the rich, dark topsoil that makes agriculture possible, takes an enormous amount of time to form. Roughly 1 centimeter of topsoil forms over a period of about 100 to 1,000 years, depending on the climate and the underlying rock. It is formed by the slow breakdown of rock, mixed with the decayed remains of plants and animals, and transformed by the activity of billions of microorganisms. It is precious and irreplaceable on human timescales. Once eroded or degraded, it cannot be quickly replaced. The thin layer of soil beneath our feet is the result of thousands of years of slow, patient geological and biological work. Fact 84. Amber preserves ancient life. Amber, fossilized tree resin, can preserve organisms in extraordinary detail. When an insect or a small creature became trapped in the sticky resin of an ancient tree, it could be preserved so perfectly that scientists can study its anatomy, its behavior, even the contents of its stomach, tens of millions of years later. The oldest amber with well-preserved inclusions is about 90 million years old, from the Cretaceous period. Inside these ancient golden stones, frozen in time, are flies and beetles and spiders and even feathers from Cretaceous birds. Tiny windows into worlds that vanished long for humans arrived. Fact 85. Seeds can wait for a very long time. Some seeds can remain dormant, alive but not growing, for extraordinarily long periods. Scientists have successfully germinated seeds from a date palm that had been stored for about 2,000 years in an ancient cave near the Dead Sea. And there are reports of seeds from the Arctic permafrost that germinated after being frozen for more than 30,000 years. A seed is a kind of living patience. It waits, quietly, for the right conditions to arrive. The warmth, the water, the light that it needs. And when those conditions come, however long you wait, it begins again. And we can take a quiet moment to notice that patience, that quiet waiting, and let our own body settle and rest in the same way. Fact 86. Snow is made of unique crystals. Every snowflake is a tiny crystal of ice, formed in the atmosphere as water vapor freezes around a tiny particle of dust or pollen. The hexagonal crystal structure of ice, the result of the way water molecules bond together, gives snowflakes their characteristic six-sided symmetry. And the exact shape of each snowflake depends on the precise temperature and humidity conditions it encountered as it fell through the atmosphere. Because these conditions vary on very small scales, no two snowflakes follow quite the same path, and no two snowflakes are, in all their tiny detail, exactly the same. Each one is a unique, quiet, tiny work of natural geometry. Etri. Fact 87. The water in your body has been around for a very long time. The water molecules in your body right now, in your blood, your cells, your tears, are ancient. They have been cycling through the water cycle for billions of years. They have been part of the ocean, part of rivers, part of clouds and rain, part of glaciers, part of other living beings. Some of the hydrogen atoms in your body's water might have been present when the Earth was very young, formed in the early universe, in the first few minutes after the Big Bang. The water you drink is not new. It is borrowed, for a little while, from a very old and continue. A cycle. Fact 88. Tides slow the Earth's rotation. We mentioned earlier that the Earth is slowly spinning more slowly. Let's revisit this gently. The friction created by the tides, the ocean water being pulled back and forth by the moon's gravity, creates a tiny resistance to the Earth's rotation. This friction transfers energy from the Earth's spin to the moon's orbit, which is why the moon is slowly moving away. Over billions of years, this process has gradually slowed the Earth's rotation from its fast, early spinning to the 24-hour day we know today. In the very distant future, the day will be longer still. The Earth and the Moon are locked in a slow, patient dance, trading energy across the centuries. Fact 89. Peat bogs preserve history. Peat bogs, wetlands where decaying plant material accumulates and oxygen poor. Acidic water can preserve organic material for thousands of years. The acidic, oxygen-poor conditions prevent decomposition. Ancient bodies found in European peat bogs, called bog bodies, are sometimes so well preserved that their faces, their hair, and even the contents of their last meals can be studied by scientists. The most famous, Talland Man, was deposited in a Danish bog about 2,400 years ago, and his face is extraordinarily well preserved. The bog kept him quietly in the dark and cold, while the Centauri passed overhead. Fact 90. The Earth has had warmer periods before. The Earth has been warmer than it is today many times in the past. During the Eocene epoch, about 50 million years ago, the planet was significantly warmer. There were no polar ice caps, and tropical forests grew at much higher latitudes than they do today. The world was lush and warm and different. Crocodilians lived in the Arctic. Palm trees grew in what is now Antarctica. These warm periods were not caused by any sudden event. They were the result of slow changes in the arrangement of continents, the activity of volcanoes, and the carbon cycle. Earth has a long history of different climatic states. Now, as we move into the later part of our journey together, the narration grows a little softer, a little slower. Fact 91. The sun will remain stable for billions of years. We've touched on this earlier, and it's worth returning to, gently, for the next several billion years. The sun will continue to shine much as it does today. It will burn steadily, a reliable, warm, patient star, providing the energy that sustains life on Earth. The sun's stability over such long timescales is one of the reasons life has been able to persist and evolve on Earth for so long. A star that flared violently, or that varied greatly in its output, would make it very difficult for complex life to develop. Our sun is, in a sense, an unusually steady and gentle star, and we are fortunate to orbit it. Fact 92. Life will continue to evolve. Life on Earth is not finished evolving. Evolution is always happening, quietly, in every generation of every species. Most changes are small and gradual. A slight shift in the color of a moth's wing, a marginal improvement in the efficiency of a bacterium's metabolism. But over millions of years, these small changes accumulate into large ones. Species change, new species emerge, old species go extinct. The tree of life grows new branches. Whatever the future holds for the planet, life, in some form, is likely to continue adapting and evolving, finding new ways to make a living in whatever conditions exist. Fact 93. New islands are being born. Right now, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a new island is forming beneath the surface. The underwater volcano Loichi, southeast of the big island of Hawaii, is slowly building up from the ocean floor. It is currently about 1 kilometer below the surface. Over the next 100,000 years or so, it will grow tall enough to break the surface and become a new island. The Hawaiian island chain was formed in exactly this way. The Pacific plate moving slowly over a stationary hot spot in the mantle, which built one island after another, over millions of years. The Earth is still making new land, quietly, beneath the sea. Fact 94. The Mediterranean Sea will eventually close. The Mediterranean Sea, that beautiful, blue, ancient sea, will not be there forever. The African plate is slowly moving northward, toward Europe. Over millions of years, This movement will slowly close the Mediterranean Sea, much as the Atlantic opened. The sea will narrow, become shallower, and eventually, in perhaps 50 million years, close entirely. The land around it will crumple into a new mountain range, as the collision of Africa and Europe pushes rock upward. The Alps and the Pyrenees were partly formed by earlier stages of this collision. The mountains of the future will be built W. Here the sea is now. Fact 95. The Amazon River changes course over time. Large rivers are not permanent fixtures of the landscape. They shift their courses over time, sometimes very slowly, sometimes in sudden jumps during floods. The Amazon River, in the deep past, actually flowed westward, toward the Pacific, before the rise of the Andes Mountains blocked its path and redirected it eastward toward the Atlantic. Rivers are shaped by the land, and the land is shaped by the movement of the plates. As the continents continue to move and mountains continue to rise or erode, the courses of rivers will continue to shift, quietly rearranging the drainage patterns of the continent. Over millions of years. Gently, we let the images of rivers and seas and mountains wash through the mind, like slow water. Fact 96. The sun's light will eventually fade. In about 5 billion years, after the sun has expanded into a red giant and shed its outer layers, what remains will be a white dwarf, a small, dense, slowly cooling ember of a star. White dwarfs cool over billions of years, very slowly fading from white to yellow to orange to red, and eventually, over trillions of years, to darkness. There are no known black dwarfs, stars that have completely cooled, because the universe is not old enough yet for any white dwarf to have cooled that much. But in the far future, the universe will be full of these cold, dark, silent remnants of stars, quiet embers in the dark. Fact 97. New stars will still be forming for a very long time. Even as older stars die, new ones will continue to form for a very long time. Astronomers estimate that, at the current rate of star formation, the universe will continue making new stars for perhaps another 100 trillion years. That is an almost inconceivably long time. 100,000 times the current age of the universe. Eventually, the raw material for new stars, the gas clouds from which they form, will be used up or dispersed. But for now, and for a very, very long time to come, the universe is still in the business of making new stars, quietly and continuously, in the dark. Fact 98. The moon's phases will slowly change. We mentioned that the moon is slowly moving away from the Earth. Over billions of years, as this happens, the apparent size of the moon in the sky will slowly decrease. Today, the moon and the sun appear almost exactly the same size in the sky, which is why we can have total solar eclipses, where the moon just barely covers the sun's disk. This is a remarkable coincidence, and it will not last forever. As the moon drifts farther away, it will appear smaller, and total solar eclipses, where the moon perfectly covers the sun, will become impossible. Future inhabitants of Earth, billions of years from now, will not see solar eclipses as we know them. Fact 99. The magnetic field will flip again. Earth's magnetic field has reversed many times in the past, the north and south magnetic poles swapping places, and it will reverse again in the future. The last reversal happened about 780,000 years ago. The process of reversal takes thousands of years, during which the magnetic field weakens and becomes more complicated, with multiple poles in different places. During a reversal, the magnetic field's protection of Earth from solar particles is diminished, though not gone entirely. Life on Earth has survived every previous magnetic reversal. The field weakens, wanders, and then reorganizes itself in the opposite orientation, quietly. And without drama. Fact 100. The Earth will always have weather. As long as the sun shines and the oceans exist, the Earth will have weather. The energy from the sun drives the evaporation of water, the formation of clouds, the movement of air. Weather is the constant, restless motion of the atmosphere in response to the uneven heating of the Earth's surface. It has been happening since Earth had an ocean and an atmosphere, for billions of years. It will continue as long as those conditions persist. Weather is not something that happens to the Earth. It is something the Earth does continuously, driven by the slow circulation of energy from the sun through the atmosphere. And now, as we drift into the last portion of our journey, the words will come a little more slowly. The ideas will be simpler, softer. You may already be very close to sleep. That's perfectly fine. Let the words wash over you like a gentle tid. Fact 101. Forests store carbon in silence. Forests absorb carbon from the air and store it in their wood, their leaves, their roots, and the soil beneath them. A mature tropical rainforest stores an enormous amount of carbon that would otherwise be in the atmosphere. This storage happens quietly, without any noise or drama. The tree simply grows, adding a new ring of wood each year, locking a little more carbon away in its trunk. The forest breathes in carbon and holds it patiently, steadily, year after year. The forests of the world are quiet guardians of the atmosphere, working slowly and without interruption. Fact 102. The Earth stays warm enough for life. Earth sits in the habitable zone of the sun, the region of space where temperatures allow liquid water to exist on the surface. This is not an accident, exactly, but it is a fortunate circumstance. A planet closer to the sun might be too hot, farther away, too cold, and Earth has several natural systems that help regulate its temperature. The carbon cycle, the ocean, the atmosphere, acting as a kind of thermostat that keeps the planet from getting too hot or too cold over geological time. The Earth tends toward stability, slowly correcting imbalances, maintaining conditions where life can continue. Fact 103. The sky at night is full of ancient light. When you look up at the night sky, or simply imagine it, lying here in the dark, every point of light you see is ancient. The light from even the nearest stars has traveled for years. The light from the farthest galaxies has traveled for billions of years. In a very real sense, the night sky is a portrait of the past, a vast, beautiful record of light that left its sources before the Earth existed, before the sun existed, in some cases before the solar system itself. The darkness of the night sky is filled with the quiet glow of the past, arriving at your eyes, tonight, after a very long journey. Fact 104. The Earth is mostly empty space. At the level of atoms, the Earth and everything on it, including you, is mostly empty space. Atoms are mostly empty. The nucleus at the center is incredibly tiny compared to the cloud of electrons that surrounds it. If an atom were the size of a cathedral, the nucleus would be smaller than a grain of sand at the center. The electrons would be drifting in the vast empty spaces of the cathedral. Everything solid that you can touch, the floor, your pillow, your own body, is, at the deepest level, almost entirely empty space, held together by the forces between particles. The world is simultaneously solid and almost entirely nothing. Fact 105. Rain falls at a gentle speed. A raindrop falls at a speed of about 5 to 9 meters per second, roughly walking pace or a little faster. This is much slower than you might expect. given that raindrops fall from clouds that are hundreds or thousands of meters above the ground. The reason is air resistance. Raindrops reach a terminal velocity, a maximum speed at which the air resistance exactly balances the pull of gravity, and then they fall at that steady, gentle speed all the way to the ground. Rain is not in a hurry. It falls at a pace that is almost relaxing to think about, steady, quiet, patient, like the rest of nature. Softly we continue, the words becoming quieter now, like rain on a window. Fact 106. The deep ocean is very still. The surface of the ocean can be turbulent, waves, currents, storms. But far below, in the deep ocean, it is very still. The great pressure of the water above compresses everything and muffles any disturbance. The temperature barely changes from season to season. There is no sunlight, no storms, just the slow, cold, quiet movement of deep water currents that carry water around the globe on timescales of hundreds to thousands of years. The deep ocean is one of the most stable environments on Earth, dark, cold, still, and very quiet. Life there has adapted to this stillness. It moves slowly. It waits patty. NTLY. Fact 107. The Earth hums at low frequencies. We mentioned this gently earlier, and it's worth returning to, softly. The Earth hums, not in a way we can hear, but in a way that sensitive instruments can detect. This very low-frequency vibration comes from the interaction of ocean waves with the sea floor. It is constant and global. Wherever you are on Earth, the ground beneath you is very gently vibrating, all the time. It is a kind of background song of the planet, too low to hear, too slow to feel, but always there. The Earth vibrates softly to itself, night and day, in the rhythm F the sea. Fact 108. Seasons are the Earth's breathing. In a sense, the seasons are like the Earth breathing. In spring and summer in the northern hemisphere, plants grow and absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. In autumn and winter, they die back and release carbon dioxide. This seasonal cycle causes a measurable rise and fall in the carbon dioxide concentration of the atmosphere over the course of each year. A slow, rhythmic breathing of the biosphere. The graph of atmospheric carbon dioxide over time looks like a wave with a steady upward trend. The upward trend is the long-term change, and the wave is the seasonal breath of the forests and fields of the north. Earn Hemisphere. Fact 109. Moonlight is reflected sunlight. The moon does not produce its own light. The soft glow of moonlight, that pale, quiet light that fills the night sky when the moon is full, is simply sunlight reflected off the surface of the moon. The moon is not a smooth mirror. Its surface is rough and ancient, covered in craters and dust, and it reflects only about 12% of the sunlight that falls on it. But even that small amount of reflected light is enough to cast shadows on a clear night. Moonlight is ancient light, bounced off an ancient world, arriving at your window after a journey of about 1¼ SE. Cons from the moon. Fact 110. The world is full of small, quiet things. When we think about the Earth and its future, we tend to think about large things, continents, oceans, mountain ranges, stars. But the world is also full of small, quiet things. A lichen growing on a rock, a beetle moving through the leaf litter of a forest floor, a bacterium dividing in the warm soil of a garden, a single water droplet on the surface of a leaf, holding the reflection of the sky. These small, quiet things are the fabric of the living world. They are unnoticed and unremarkable, and yet without them, the larger world would not exist. The world is made of small things working together. Slowly and silently. We are nearly at the end of our journey now. and the words will slow even more, like the last embers of a very quiet fire. Fact 111. The ground beneath you is ancient. The rock beneath the soil beneath your home is very old. Even the young rock, the volcanic rock of Hawaii, for instance, is hundreds of thousands of years old. The older rock of the continents is billions of years old, shaped by a history of collisions and erosions and upheavals that happened long before any living thing walked upon it. The ground is ancient and patient. It has held mountains and seas and glaciers. It has been scraped and folded and melted and reshaped. And now it holds you quietly, tonight, as it always has, steady and still beneath Everett. Hing. Fact 112. The air is always moving. Even when the day feels still, the air is always moving, rising here, sinking there, drifting gently in currents that span thousands of kilometers. The atmosphere is never truly at rest, but its motion, at the largest scales, is slow and rhythmic. The great circulation patterns of the atmosphere move air from the tropics toward the poles and back again, gently distributing heat and moisture around the world. The air above you tonight has come from somewhere, from a distant ocean, a far mountain, a warm plain, and it will move on again, quietly, to somewhere else, carrying a little of everywhere it has been. Fact 113. Stars are mostly space. We said that atoms are mostly empty space, and stars are made of atoms. So stars, too, are mostly empty space held together by gravity and filled with the force of nuclear fusion. The sun, for all its enormous size, is mostly nothing, hot, energetic nothing, but nothing nonetheless. And the space between the sun and the earth is even emptier, almost perfectly empty. In fact, outer space is the most empty thing we know of. And yet space is not truly nothing. It is filled with light and magnetic fields and dark energy and the faint warmth of the cosmic microwave background. Even emptiness, it turns out, is full. L of something. Fact 114. Plants turn light into sugar every day. Every day, in every plant, from the smallest blade of grass to the tallest sequoia, the quiet miracle of photosynthesis is happening. Sunlight falls on a leaf. Tiny structures inside the leaf cells, called chloroplasts, capture the energy of the light and use it to combine carbon dioxide and water into sugar. That sugar fuels the plant's growth. It fuels the growth of everything that eats the plant, and everything that eats those animals. The energy in your body, right now, the warmth, the gentle movement of your chest as you breathe, can be traced back to sunlight that fell on a plant, somewhere, at some point. You are, in a quiet way, powered by the sun. Fact 115. The night is never truly silent. Even in the quietest night, in the most remote place, the world is not silent. There are crickets, or frogs, or the wind in the grass. There is the settling of the house, the distant sound of traffic, the slow drip of water somewhere. And beneath all of that, too low to hear, the earth is humming its low, constant hum. The atoms in your body are vibrating with thermal energy. The electrons in the wires in your walls are moving. The air molecules are colliding and bouncing in their endless Brownian motion. Silence is not the absence of motion. It is simply motion that is too small and too low and too deep to hear. Very slowly now, very gently. Fact 116. The earth is always in motion. Let us return, very softly, to where we began. The earth is always in motion. It spins on its axis, completing a rotation every 24 hours. It orbits the sun, completing a full orbit every year. It moves with the sun around the center of the Milky Way, at a speed of about 800,000 kilometers per hour. and the entire Milky Way moves through the universe toward a distant concentration of galaxies called the Great Attractor. You are never still, even when you feel perfectly motionless. You are spinning and orbiting and flying through space, held gently in your seat by gravity, moving through the universe at extraordinary speed. Fact 117. The ocean will be here for a long time. For the next billion years or so, the ocean will continue to exist, the great blue covering of Earth's surface. It will change, it will warm and cool, rise and fall, shift its chemistry, but it will remain vast and patient, covering most of the planet. Eventually, as the sun slowly brightens, the conditions that allow liquid water to exist on the surface will become more challenging. But that is very far in the future. For now, and for a very long time, the ocean will be here, dark and deep, breathing its slow tidal breath, sheltering its extraordinary diversity of life. The ocean endures. Fact 118. The Earth will endure for a very long time. The Earth has been here for 4.5 billion years. It will be here, in some form, for billions more. It has survived asteroid impacts, mass extinctions, ice ages, volcanic winters, and the slow brightening of the sun. It has changed over and over again, its surface rearranged, its atmosphere transformed, its climate shifted. But it endures. The planet is resilient, in the deepest sense, not unchanging, but persistent. Whatever changes the future brings, the Earth will be here, slowly adjusting, slowly adapting, slowly moving through the great cycles of geology and climate and life. The Earth is patient, and patient things tend to last. Even more slowly now, the words becoming like the soft sound of breathing. Fact 119. The stars will still be there tomorrow. When the sun rises tomorrow morning, the stars will still be there, hidden behind the blue light of the day, but still there, still burning. The universe will be exactly where it was last night, just very slightly expanded, just very slightly older. Proxima Centauri will be just a tiny fraction of a millimeter farther away. The Andromeda Galaxy will be slightly closer, by an imperceptible amount. The whole vast, slow, quiet machinery of the universe will have ticked on, imperceptibly, through another night. And when the sky grows dark again tomorrow night, the stars will reappear, right where you left them, patient and unchanging in their slow. Ancient light. Fact 120. The Earth is home. Of all the facts we've gently explored tonight, the drifting continents, the ancient ice, the slow brightening of the sun, the vast distances between the stars, perhaps the most important is this: the Earth is home. It is the only home we know of, in all the vast darkness of the universe, where life exists. It is a warm, blue, water-covered, atmosphere-wrapped world, spinning quietly in space, sheltering billions of forms of life from the cold and emptiness of the cosmos. It is ancient, and it is resilient, and it is beautiful. And tonight, beneath its sky, you are resting. You are safe. You are home. And so, we come to the end of our gentle journey through the future of Earth. We have moved through so many slow and quiet things tonight. The drift of the continents, the breathing of the atmosphere, the patient work of forests and oceans, the ancient light of distant stars, the deep, quiet hum of the earth beneath our feet. And we can take a moment to notice how all of these things are happening right now as you rest. The continents are drifting, very slowly. The ocean is absorbing the warmth of the day. The forests are breathing, quietly, in the dark. The stars are shining behind the sky above you. The earth is spinning, gently, beneath you. Everything is moving slowly, patiently, without hurry. And you can rest. You don't need to hold any of this in your mind right now. You don't need to remember the names or the numbers or the timescales. All you need to do is rest. The Earth has been doing all of this for 4.5 billion years, without any help from you. It will continue long after tonight, long after this moment, long after everything we've talked about. The continents will drift, the ocean will breathe, the sun will shine, the stars will turn, and you will sleep. Slowly, gently let the weight of your body sink into whatever is holding you. Let your thoughts become quieter. Let the images from tonight, the slow glaciers, the deep ocean, the ancient ice, the patient forests, drift through your mind like clouds, softly, without holding on to any one of them. You are resting on a planet that is very, very old and very, very patient. You are held by a gravity that has been holding things together for billions of years. You are breathing air that has been cycling through the world since before there were trees. And the stars above you are shining with light that has traveled for years and centuries and millions of years, just to reach you, tonight, in the quiet dark. Everything is well. Everything is as it should be. The earth will be here in the morning. The sun will rise again. The birds will begin to sing, slowly, in the early light. And you will have rested. So let go now, very gently. Let go of the day, and of the night, and of the thoughts, and of the words. Let yourself drift, like a cloud in a very slow sky, like a leaf on a very still river, like starlight traveling quietly through the dark. Slowly, gently, at rest. Good night.